Well, good afternoon, everyone, and we have a lot to get through this afternoon. I'm delighted to be joined today by Ray Harmer, the Minister for Infrastructure. DOI have been a critical partner in the work government has done to prepare and deal with the impact of COVID-19. Now, I won't steal his thunder. He can tell you a lot more about this in a moment. But first of all, I would like to ask the Health and Social Care Minister to cover today's statistics. David.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. The total number of tests now undertaken stands at 3,117. The total tests back is 3,079, leaving outstanding awaiting results 38 tests. We have 2 new cases identified today, bringing our total cases to 315. Of those, 260 are now presumed recovered, leaving us with 34 active cases. One thing I need to emphasise is although there's been several new cases identified over the last few days, that is not a cause for concern. I know people have started to get used to the fact we had a few days of zero, but as I have said repeatedly, we will see low levels of cases emerging because there is still a low level of community transmission. But what matters is the long-term data trend, which is not currently causing any form of concern. Thank you, Chief Minister.
And thank you very much, David. And I think it's worth pointing out and making absolutely clear that based on the contact tracing so far, there is no evidence that these cases have any link to the changes we made last Friday. Now, as you say, there is no cause for immediate alarm, but it is a stark reminder that we can take nothing for granted when dealing with this pandemic. We need to keep up all our efforts on social distancing, hand washing and wider hygiene. Now, I'd like to update you all on a marathon Council of Ministers meeting today. We discussed and considered a number of papers, and I want to share with you my impressions on those bits of the discussions that may impact on your lives. The Council of Ministers have agreed that our next fundamental review point will be the 7th of May. We decided on this date on the advice of our clinicians and policy officials. This will give us the space to amass the data that we need to be able to make the best decisions for our island. I want to make a couple of other important points on this. First, it does not mean that we will be announcing wholesale changes on that date. We will, and I know you have heard this a lot, progress in small, manageable, clinically driven steps. We will make decisions on the data and the clinical data we have. And please don't forget that if the data is telling us that we can't make changes, we won't. Second, any measures that we may decide on the 7th of May may not come into effect on that date. It may be that we need to amend legislation and need time to do that. It may be that the changes we decide need a lead time from industry. I can commit to you that we will operate in a transparent manner. On transparency more widely, the Council of Ministers today also considered the strategy document that I mentioned to you from the lectern. It is the document that describes our medium-term approach to COVID and what decisions we see ahead of us and how we will be making those decisions. There was broad support of the document and the approach across Council. We have asked for some final detailed changes and we expect to publish it on our website after the Council of Ministers have had a final review at its meeting on Saturday morning. We will then debate the document on Tuesday in Tynwald with our Tynwald colleagues. Some people have referred to it as an exit strategy. This, of course, does beg the question of what we will be exiting to. This remains the big unknown. I wish I knew the answer. Life will not be the same as it was for some time to come. Until there are real game changers, such as vaccine, we have to learn to live with the virus and manage it in our island community. But I hope that what you see will be a path ahead that gets us to the new normal, a new Manx normal. The Council of Ministers also considered papers on golf and fishing. We know how important these and sport in general are to people's well-being over these challenging times. I am able to announce that from Saturday morning, recreational angling will be allowed under the current restrictions. There will be some exceptions. We are not yet ready to allow angling by boat or by kayak, the opening of private-owned fisheries, angling by anyone who has symptoms or has anyone in their household with symptoms. And for those of you rushing to get your fishing kit ready for Saturday morning, please remember the importance of maintaining strict social distancing and hygiene rules. Please respect other people's space and, of course, make sure you have a fishing licence where necessary. We also discussed golf, and I am grateful for all the work that has been done by the industry, the golfing industry, to work with us to establish what would be needed to allow golf to resume. The Council of Ministers has asked for some additional details, and the Minister for Education, Sport and Culture will be able to update you at his press conference on Saturday. Now seems like a good time to hand over to the Minister for Infrastructure for an update. Ray.
Thank you, Chief Minister. There has much been said about the spirit of the Manx community over the past 5 weeks. I too would like to add my commendations to various businesses and people in our community. Many pubs and restaurants have become food delivery outlets. The gin distillers have reconfigured their production line to produce much needed hand sanitizer. Heritage Rail staff have stepped up, become security guards at Nobles Hospital. We have often said, as a small island, we can react fast to events, change legislation quickly, and adapt our working patterns. An excellent example of this is the work that the staff in my department have put in, working seamlessly with colleagues from right across governments to shore up the island's defences against this invisible virus. On the 10th of March, the Department of Infrastructure was getting ready for summer. We were preparing for local elections, for the TT, for the opening of the railways and the trams, and of course for the work on the promenade. Other projects were well advanced. The Isle of Man ferry terminal in Liverpool was progressing well. Work to begin to remove the silt from Peel Harbour was underway, and whilst the work on the promenade was challenging, at least no one was accusing us of working too close together. On the 11th of March, the World Health Organization redefined the coronavirus outbreak as a pandemic. The Manx government reacted quickly and sharply. In a matter of weeks, our borders were shut, local elections cancelled, construction sites and railways closed, only essential travel allowed, a 40-mile-an-hour all-island speed limit introduced, and inevitably the TT was cancelled. This also marked the first part of our fight back against the virus. The role of my department would be to deliver solutions around infrastructure and logistics and provide the DHSC with what they needed to save lives. The hospital required extra capacity, so we transformed the unused parts of the Newland site into a new 50-bed ward. Our army of builders, electricians, engineers, craftsmen, caretakers and cleaners swung into action immediately and delivered the first completed bays to the matron in less than 2 weeks. The ward was fully fitted out to modern hospital requirements and has since helped accommodate patients from Abbotswood on a temporary basis, while DHSC, again with support from DOI, deep cleaned Abbotswood and undertook important works to ensure a safe environment. We knew the supply of oxygen would be a key weapon in saving lives. However, due to worldwide demand, concerns were raised over supply issues to the island. A number of approaches were considered, and the Council of Ministers took the opinion to build the island's own oxygen generation facility. There was huge worldwide demand for this sort of equipment, and our hospital estates and engineering teams were able to secure the units we needed just before other countries grabbed them for their own temporary hospitals. We are commissioning the new plant this week, which could not have been done without the first-class support from the island's private sector businesses and contractors who sent their staff to help us, including fabricators who sourced and built a whole new industrial unit, tradesmen who refused to charge extra for weekends and bank holidays, and local businesses and charities who lent us valuable equipment for as long as we need it. You all know who you are. We are very grateful. Some of you have seen the video of the equipment arriving in the short film we have made. This facility will ensure that we will now be able to deliver oxygen to COVID-19 patients at Noble's Hospital, whatever happens to the supply from the UK. While this was being built, we worked closely with our bulk oxygen supplier to make sure that their tankers could get to and from the island quickly and easily. There is a short film of this too, but what it doesn't show is the incredible support that the Isle of Man steam packet and the constabulary gave our teams. We have been able to get an oxygen delivery off the boat, unloaded at Nobles and back on the boat within 2 hours. And the boat has been waiting for the oxygen in both directions to ensure that it makes the sailing. You cannot buy that level of service. It comes free with the great people working together to help all of us cope with the virus. We have all read in the news about the strains being put on the NHS supply chains. We acted quickly, converting the NSC into a storage facility and using the vehicles that would have been putting out cones at TT to distribute vital PPE equipment across nursing and residential homes. Staff that couldn't do their normal work due to lockdown came into operation the stores and delivered the PPE. Everybody has played a role. I remember we had a call very late one Friday night, and one of our highways team dropped everything to deliver from Ramsey to Douglas, at 40 miles an hour of course, to deliver the PPE to a care facility that was in need. I also want to pay tribute to all those people who've kept providing all the usual services that you rely on. There may not be as many passengers, but the airports and the harbours are operating as normal. We have fewer bus passengers now that buses are for essential journeys, but our drivers have kept everybody on the move. Our priority has been supporting DHSC, but we haven't forgotten everyone else. Looking at all the work that's been done and the effort our staff have made to go the extra mile, it has been first class. We must ensure that we capture what we have learned about agility, flexibility and cross-government working and use it in the future. It wouldn't be right for me to finish without a few words about the Douglas Promenade. Work will begin again in earnest on the 4th of May. The site and its equipment are being checked and made safe this week. Work on the tramway has started. We have used the time when we were not able to work to think about how we can best manage the challenges to our economy and particularly how we can help next year's visitors' economy take off. We have taken the opportunity to re-look at the prom programme and the scheme. The world has changed dramatically. We must accept that the economy and the island will take time to recover. We now intend to alter the way we work and to slightly change what we plan to do so that we can be finished before Easter next year. This will be a challenge, but we are working closely with our contractor and are confident that between us we can do it. Finally, I would like to honour and thank every member of my department, the people who support the front line behind the scenes, colleagues who have enabled key deliveries, and the many more people in government, in business, in charities, working together to keep us going. Thank you. Stay safe. And I'll hand back to the Chief Minister.
And thank you very much, Ray. Please pass on my personal thanks to your colleagues, and I've been so impressed by the ingenuity and flexibility that they've shown. And it's not just been about the teams who've been fixing and building. DOI staff have been redeployed to support other departments, and this has been such an important contribution. As you pointed out, we must not forget the crucial work keeping the island running. We'll now take questions, and I think first we have today is Mr. Bell from the BBC.
Afternoon, Chief Minister. Obviously, this comes after, I know you had a phone call with the UK government yesterday. And yesterday we also saw Michael Gove saying that UK islands, not us, UK islands could be used as pilot testing grounds, if you like, for the UK's eventual exit strategy. Just wondering, given the constitutional relationship between the UK and the Isle of Man, while we're not a UK island, are the UK government feeding any suggestions into your ear? Are you feeding any suggestions and feedback into their ears?
Well, not really. Obviously, I respect what the UK do. They make their own decisions, and we make decisions that are Manx decisions for Manx solutions and Manx problems. Obviously, speaking to my colleague chief ministers in the Channel Islands, Jersey and Guernsey, we have very similar issues. They are in a very similar position to ourselves. They have PPE issues. We're lucky in that aspect. They've set up, one of them has set up their own testing regime like we have, and we have very similar numbers of cases, etc. And I think all three of the Channel Islands are really have managed, of the Crown dependencies, I should say, really have managed to flatten down the curve. So we do listen to what's going on in the UK, and if there's anything that we can do to help them, if we come out of this quicker than the UK, then of course the Isle of Man will be there to be a good neighbour. But it's just getting a general update on what's happening regarding the coronavirus. But also there are other issues. I'm still having to deal with Brexit. You know, it seemed to be the word we were all discussing a few months ago, the number one topic. Every day, every meeting I went to had the B word somewhere, and now it's a very small, minutiae part of my life because coronavirus has come along. But they're very good meetings. It's always good to chat and learn ideas and see what stages your colleagues are at in their exit strategy or the next step that they're taking.
Yeah, the B word has very much been replaced by the C word in recent weeks, hasn't it, Chief Minister?
It is. I hope to God there's no D word.
Could I ask a question of the Infrastructure Minister, please?
Yeah, no problem. Ray.
Hi, Alex.
Afternoon, Minister.
Afternoon.
You alluded to some changes to the promenade scheme there. Can we expect substantive changes to the way it will eventually look? And crucially, will it affect the timescale and the cost?
So we have a really good opportunity. There'll be further announcements coming forward, but in essence, we have an opportunity because, in effect, much of the promenade is in many sense closed. So in terms of how it will look, a lot of it will look remarkably as it was planned to look. But what we will need to be doing is taking hard look on the stages and how we manage the whole process. I mean, if I'd said to you that at some point it may even be closed for a short period, the answer would have been no, only a month or so ago. So we are looking at how we deliver it.
Okay, thank you. When can we expect advances then? When can we expect these plans to be published?
Well, that will come into fruition over the next few weeks. But the key thing is that our aim, our target, is before next Easter.
Next Easter, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex and Ray. And next we've got Sam from Isle of Man Newspapers. Hi, Sam.
Good afternoon, Mr. Quayle. Sorry, I was going to ask Mr. Harmer to stay, but I didn't want to interrupt you as you were coming in, to be honest.
Okay, we'll get Mr. Harmer back. Ray.
Thanks, Sam.
Catherine, I just wondered if we could clarify something. We've had a few people contact us about the work ongoing on the MER track and the workers themselves. Are they locally based workers, or are they ones that have come in under an exemption through the border being closed, or have they been on the island the whole time while work has been closed down?
These particular workers you're talking about were actually back here way before, earlier in the year, and they never left the island. And so they haven't had to comply with any new regulations as they're already here.
Okay, thank you. And then just could we go on to Liverpool? You mentioned Liverpool landing stage. Is that still on its current target, or has that shifted at all as a result of what's happened here?
I think we're all taking a really hard look at it in terms of, obviously in the UK construction never stopped, but obviously they have their own pressures, so we're going to have to meet those pressures and challenges. But at this stage there is no change to our timeline. It's just that it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Thank you.
Okay, Sam. Right, we now move on to Amanda from Jeff the Mongoose. Amanda, how are you doing?
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. I'm really sorry. I have a question for Minister Harmer as well.
Okay, no problem. Ray.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Minister. You've spoken about the cross-department effort to produce oxygen on the island, in addition to the new testing centre. Are there any plans to create any other services to help the health department deal with COVID-19, such as cancer treatments to avoid patients having to travel off island?
So I think there's a couple of big areas. Oxygen was one. The new hospital, in fact, the new wing was two. Getting the beds in. 3 was really about logistics and around. And I think that's really how things have been really good in the sense of that cross-department working, which I think is key. And we have people that. Because logistics is logistics, whether you're in highways or whatever you are. So we will be working with the HSE. It's a new normal. We've changed. We all have to change, and we all have to, at a drop of a hat, move to our new challenges. And that's absolutely what we will be doing.
And there aren't any plans in the pipeline currently ahead of what we've already had?
Well, my officers are working continually, but at the moment it was commissioning the oxygen unit this week and also the new beds. But obviously we'll be working with JHSC and we've got a very close working relationship. But this is a very fast moving situation as we start to bring some of these services back online.
Of course, thank you. And my second question is for you as well, if that's okay.
Okay.
When we reach a stage where we can open our borders, will there be an introduction of controls at the airport and ferry terminal to test people for COVID-19 symptoms, such as temperature screens, or actual COVID-19 tests?
So I think that's a very good question. I think it's just such a fast-moving area that I can't really honestly give you an answer of how that will work. All we know is it's going to be different. I mean, in some ways, you've seen, if you remember how in 2001 the world changed with the Twin Towers, and how in fact security became completely different. But almost 15 years later, you'd barely notice it. You go through it, and of course, there's going to be similar changes that will be very uncomfortable to begin with, no doubt. But at this stage, because it's such a changing environment, it's difficult to actually precisely say what those procedures will be. So I hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, man, I think just before we do that, I think really part of that question was something the Health Minister could give you a clearer answer on regarding bringing back some of our cancer treatments and other medical services. So I think it's, I'll bring the Health Minister in a second. And also, as Minister Harmer has mentioned about the borders, we really just don't know at this moment in time. Lifting the borders up, even in a small way, will be quite some time down the road, and it'll be done in small steps rather than major upheavals. But obviously we will have to look at the latest thinking at the time on how we monitor people coming through. Obviously, for the people on the repatriation scheme, Amanda, we do send a medical member of staff over to check on those people and make sure that they're fit to travel, and B, check their temperature to make sure that, and to ensure that they're not exhibiting any signs of having COVID-19. But I think probably I'll bring David back in just to do a little bit more on the cancer, because it's a key question that I get a lot of questions from members of the public, and I think it's worth just giving it that little bit more of an answer. So David, if you'd like to come in.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Just going back to that very first question there, Amanda, on cancer, and you mentioning about is DOI working on anything to expand our cancer treatments on the island. What we've got to remember is when it comes to physical treatments, it's not just a case of plant or equipment and having it on Ireland. It's about being able to deliver the service in a clinically safe way. And with being an island of 85,000, there is always going to be certain services that we are not going to be able to deliver on Ireland. We're always going to have key dependencies where we have to send people away. That's not going to change with this situation. So it's not just about getting the equipment in to treat a certain type of cancer. It's then about the clinical specialities that go around that, having the expertise on Ireland, and also being able to provide appropriate care on Ireland. So, so it's not just about, asking DOI to get us a load of equipment and that means we can expand our cancer care on the island. It all ties in with that as well. Can I also take the opportunity while I am at the podium to thank DOI while I've got the Minister for Infrastructure here with us today for all they have done with their engagement with DHSC. They have done things in phenomenal timescales for us, and it's very, very much appreciated the way everyone has pulled together to be able to deliver things such as the oxygen plant in such a short period of time.
Thinking you've got an ex-health minister, health and social care minister here, myself as well. Obviously, just expanding on David's comments, generating our own electricity has been a fantastic achievement, and it gives us that insurance policy. But certain types of medicine, whether that be the administration of chemotherapy, etc., needs specialist expertise, and for a consultant to be able to do that, they need to have a certain number of cases a year to handle that. On a small island of 85,000, there are certain types of medical treatment that we just don't have the volume to keep that person's proficiency up, and therefore we will always have to send people away to the likes of Clatterbridge to get that very best treatment that we can get for our people of the island. That will always continue. Right, next I have Lewis from Manx Radio. Lewis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My first question's for Infrastructure Minister, please.
Right, well,
okay.
he's certainly earning his keep. It's his first conference today, so I'm delighted that you're giving him so many questions. Ray.
Thank you, Chief Minister.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You've mentioned, in terms of the prom works, you've mentioned changes in timescale. They were originally budgeted at £25 million. Do current projections change that amount at all? And if so, by how much?
So we're looking to still be within that range, around 25 million. So that hasn't particularly changed. What we're really looking about is how we can do things better, and really sort of pick up some of the slack or speed that the issues, and really move that forward.
Okay. And whilst we know the work is being done by contractors on behalf of government, not government employees, what assurances can you give these workers that they will be safe in their workplace? And if someone does fall ill working on the prom, is government then liable?
In terms of keeping safe, they all have to fit. I mean, a big construction site has to follow very strict health and safety precautions, and obviously the contractor has to deal with that. Some of the contractors have worked on big projects such as Terminal 5 at Heathrow, so they're used to dealing with this. Is very normal for a large construction site. And actually, as I sort of alluded before, the criticism sometimes is that you don't see too many workers that close together. Well, that certainly won't be the case going forward, and we will be working very strictly within our health and safety.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we move on to Rob from 3FM. Rob, how are you?
I'm very well, Chief Minister. How are you?
I'm great, thanks very much. Though a 4-5 hour meeting of Council of Ministers today does tend to be a little bit draining.
I can imagine. Perhaps unsurprisingly, I have a question for the Infrastructure Minister, please.
Okay, Ray.
Rob, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Good to see you,
good.
Minister. Getting your daily steps in, getting to and from the podium today, I see. In terms of, I understand the DOI now has a leading role in the repatriation process. Of course, we saw the first group leaving the Comas Hotel this week. Having listened to feedback from those who've been staying there, are there any changes planned to the system in the coming weeks?
So I think obviously it's a cross-department effort. Obviously, as I was alluding to before, the logistics side is something that obviously the department deals with, and it's been changing all the way along. The details have been updated in terms of some of the practical elements regarding what people take with them. All of that is changing all the time, and it always reviewed, it's always challenged, and we're dealing with it. I think what often is forgotten is that there's no sort of hard and fast in these scenarios. It's a continually evolving situation. So what will happen 1 week as the health advice changes will change the following, and we very much work with the health advice. That's absolutely paramount in everything we do.
Thank you very much. My second question is also for yourself, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Obviously, as part of the precautions against the pandemic, the vehicle test centre was closed for a matter of safety. Given that is still the case, could you just possibly clarify for people what services that the test centre runs are still available at the moment and which aren't? Because I know it covers a lot of things such as driving tests, tax discs, and registering certain vehicles and so on.
So tax discs are still being processed and still being administered. Anything that's paper-based is still being administered. Obviously, all of the driving, particularly driving exams, are not currently happening, nor either are vehicle testing. But that's as I stand here today. Obviously, as matters change, the vehicle testing and so forth can move forward, and that's one of the changes that can happen in the next few weeks as we ease our the way we work. So at the moment, yes, it's closed, but tax discs, everything like that, anything paper based is still operating. There's still a staff, they're still working.
And sorry, just for a bit of further clarity as well, with regards to that, as you say, as the situation develops, where will that, like you say, the reopening of certain services there, fit into the phase structure of what's been outlined so far, at least in this 6-stage strategy?
Well, that's sort of quite the sort of detail. So, for example, vehicle testing is more feasible because you can maintain social distance. So that will be an earlier stage. The driving exams for people driving, that will be much later, and obviously we've got to work a way of doing that while still maintaining social distancing, so that could be quite a way off, whereas I think vehicle testing is much, and that will be much earlier in the process. As I think has been outlined, it's really about measured steady steps and not to rush any of this, but hopefully that gives you sort of context of where we're moving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And before I move on to Simon, I'd just like to point out, Rob, in your first question to the DOI Minister regarding repatriation, and I'm just going to generalise now. Council of Ministers, the National Strategy Group, the Bronze Committee, the Silver Committee, the Gold Committee regularly are meeting nearly every day, discussing and reviewing everything that A, we've already set up, and B, changes that we can make. So it's very fast and fluid. As the curve comes down, if we manage to keep that down, then the public will see changes to maybe how we work some of our repatriation measures, how we do other items on the island. For example, I've just announced that you can go fishing from Saturday, from the shore or in a proper reservoir, etc. So changes all the time, but so we review everything. There is nothing set in tablets of stone. We look at the data that we get from our clinicians, from public health, along with the data from the 111 call centre to see what is out there in the community. Are there hotspots? Do we have a problem? And if we feel that over a period of time everything is controllable, then of course we will be making tweaks and changes to try and improve the experience that everyone on the island is currently experiencing. If I can move on to Simon Richardson at Business 365. Simon.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister. And to maintain consistency, could I speak to Mr. Harmer, please?
Certainly.
Afternoon, Simon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Harmer. Obviously, the coronavirus will bring to a halt many of your department's current projects. Meanwhile, I suppose an inevitable consequence of such huge and unexpected expenditure by government will be a squeeze on departmental budgets next year and beyond. Now, given the backlog of work that's building up, how concerned are you that important road and infrastructure works will have to be shelved indefinitely as a result of this pandemic?
Well, thank you. I think, Simon, in one sense, I think the key issue is actually will be a need to accelerate the capital programme once we move into a recovery phase. That's an important part of moving forward with the economy. So yes, some resources have had to be rescheduled or removed. So for example, that the work to do with hospital has to take priority. It will mean looking at reprioritising certain things, maximising local spend where we can, but it will be very much a case of when we're in a recovery phase, I would say, over the next 6 to 9 months, that we'll be looking actually to accelerate some of those capital schemes.
Okay, thank you. And also to you, Mr. Harmer, if I may, you mentioned the airport earlier. Is it the case that many of the staff that work for private companies have had to be furloughed as a result of this, given the level of business moving through the airport?
Sorry, I don't quite follow your question. When you say those that have been furloughed, do you mean
the staff? No, the airport you said was running normally. Is that normal in terms of the number of staff that are working there, or have people had to be laid off or furloughed for the period?
We've had to, in terms of, and this is an answer for the whole of the department. We've actually redeployed a number of people. So in terms of the department and where people are working, we're actually probably working more near a normal in terms of capacity. But it has meant that actually people are doing different jobs, and obviously with regard to the airport, you still need air traffic controllers. They still need to operate while the airport is running. But I think generally across the department, we're actually working more nearer 100% than you would think, because, as I say, there are additional challenges that we have to face.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for. Before I move on to Paul, Simon, I think it's important to point out that I think about 1,000 of our staff have been moved to other areas to work to help out where their jobs have ceased to be needed for the time being. For example, some of the team from the Heritage Railway have been doing security up at the hospital. So a good 80+% of all our staff are currently continuing to work in their current jobs. So if we move on to Paul from MTTV. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Quill. I'd like to speak to, yes, you guess, Mr. Harmer.
Okay, I'm getting off lightly today. Ray.
Thank you. Afternoon, Paul.
Hi, Ray. You mentioned shutting the prom briefly in your opening statement. I know that's something you're quite keen on, and clearly at the minute with the traffic being down, that is potentially doable. So can you give us any meat on the bones on that one bit more? Are you seeing a full shutdown at the promenade to get the scheme going again?
So I think in the way we've looked at the work that we can do, a large part of it will be potentially making it a one-way for large parts of the project timeline, and there may be times when we need to shut it. It won't be shut fully for all the period, but that's the kind of work. It's that kind of flexibility which we wouldn't have never have dreamt of. But I think we have to be honest in terms of the tourist season this summer. We'd also committed to no landside working. Well, clearly that is really not an issue now for this, and I think all of the consultation that we're doing is saying, for goodness sake, get it done. Do not let 2021 be a season where we've still got promenade works.
I'm just checking the dates, and it's the first week of April is Easter next year. You have a contract in place, of course. Is that been ripped up and you've had to go back and renegotiate everything because clearly of this interruption to the scheme, which is beyond anyone's sort of control? Therefore, have all the penalties been lost? Are you back to a 0 point now, or what?
It's very much a collaborative effort in terms of positioning our resources so that we meet that, so that, for example, some of those constraints that were there before are no longer there. And because we're removing some of those constraints means that we can do things quicker. It was always said that if you completely close the prom, I believe that there's a number of tenders that could say, well, actually we could do it within 9 months, a year. So it's very much about the constraints that you give a project. If you're keeping everything open, two-way traffic, you're not allowing landside working in the summer. If you put all of those constraints, then obviously it takes longer. So removing some of those constraints actually allows us to deliver the promenade in a quicker time.
A new contract. And
well, it's not.
What was the last contract? When was it due to be finished as well? I suppose.
Well, basically, we envisage, because of the lockdown and because of all of the issues, that we certainly would not be completing it next summer. We certainly would not be, because of the coronavirus. It certainly would have an impact. Obviously, there's an impact on key workers coming into the island. All of those means that we've just got to think differently, and I think that's the challenge almost from day one, is saying think different. You can't keep on the same sort of silo mentality. We have to think different, and that works across as we partner with a contractor to move this forward.
So what was the date originally for it to be completed? Sorry.
So it depends how far back you go. Originally we were talking about
the latest one,
it basically would have been August 2021. That was before
by April 2021.
Yes, and that was before the coronavirus. Obviously, there's been no work happening over the last six weeks, and obviously there's a cost and a mobilisation that you have to be able to deliver on.
I think before I move on, Paul, to our final Chris today, it's worth pointing out that obviously as a government we listen to the concerns, and obviously our hoteliers on the prom are having a bit of a tough time along with all the other businesses on the promenade, and if there's anything that we can do to ensure that whilst they cannot operate, we can get on with the work outside their premises, so that come the start of the tourist season next year, hopefully if everything can open up again and there's no road works going on outside their property, then that will help their businesses get back to some form of normality. So obviously anything that this administration, I'm sure all our colleagues in Tynwald will support these changes that will help those Manx businesses that have been affected. It seems totally logical to make these changes for the good of everyone, the economy and all those businesses on the promenade. So finally we have Chris Cave from Energy FM. Chris.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister. If I may speak to Minister Harmer, please.
Okay, Chris. I won't be offended.
Afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, Minister. And not surprisingly, a lot of the issues I wanted to raise have already been brought up. But just going back to the cost of certain projects, you say certain projects will be accelerated as soon as they can be. How confident are you that you can still carry out these projects on budget? Because the whole landscape has changed, whether that be employers charging more to carry out the work or the cost of materials rising as a result of this pandemic.
And that's very much the challenge over the next few months, and the work that we've been doing already. Obviously, because of the whole world has changed, there's opportunities for more local construction as well. And I think it would be very much a boost to the economy. Before the pandemic, we were reaching very high levels of projects completing on time and on budget. Now we've got to push even harder. But I think I do notice complete change in the industry. I notice complete change in how people are working. I think you've seen that in terms of some of the hospital work that's been completed in 2 weeks. And I think we've really got to take that forward following, over the next months, because it's going to be critical that we do that so that we can rebuild our economy.
But surely, even if you have certain initiatives which you want to carry out quickly, like you said, at the hospital, there are others which may be deemed as vanity projects, which are surely in jeopardy.
Well, Yes, of course. The whole capital programme is being reprioritised as we speak, and that will, obviously figure quite clearly in the budget in July. So it is about prioritising, but it's also about accelerating. I think that's a key message. It's not about actually reconstructing, and the infrastructure is going to be really, really important as we rebuild our economy. I don't think it's right to consider cutting back, because actually the infrastructure will bring us through this, and also in some ways actually re-energize what we're doing.
Thank you. And when things do gradually go back to normal, are there plans in place to deep clean places like the airport and the sea terminal, and also other work environments, to reduce the risk of the virus spreading once again?
Well, that is really now becoming part and parcel of what we're doing, and this is the challenge. What we're all learning, this is all new in terms of changing a lot of what we do to how we need to for the pandemic. But what I need to remind everyone is that this is quite normal in terms of construction, in terms of processes. That's what we do. We do logistics, we do things where we check procedures and so forth. So actually including that as part of the way we work is very normal. It is the new normal, but it is something that we're very much set up to do.
Thanks very much.
Before I move on, I think it's important to just expand on what Ray was saying and the question regarding capital projects. It really is important. We've got 4,500 people working in our construction industry, and if government can continue with its capital projects, for example, we've got a STEM block at the Queen Elizabeth II High School that needs working on. We've still got work to start on the new school at Castle Rushen High School. All that puts money in the economy. It's what's known as the multiplier effect. So it's not just the 4,500 jobs and families that are getting an income. It's also the industries that support the construction sector. They will get that income going around the economy, and therefore it's really important that we continue with our capital projects as much as possible to help the Manx economy continue. I'll take one last question from Manx Radio, and then we'll move on. Lewis.
Infrastructure Minister, please, if that's okay.
Right.
Afternoon, Lewis.
Thank you. Just quickly, pictures shared on social media suggest work has also restarted on dredging Peel Marina. Can you just confirm if this is the case?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And before I go, I'd like to give some shout-outs. First, a shout-out to Across the Irish Sea today. Today marks the 100th birthday of Captain Tom Moore, or more appropriately, Colonel Tom Moore, following his honorary promotion yesterday. Tom has captured the imagination of people across these islands and the wider world with his 100th birthday walk for the UK's NHS, with fundraising now at a truly staggering £31 million. Tom represents the best of us, serving as a beacon of hope and of pride in these unsettling and sorrowful times. Tom has demonstrated the power of the human spirit, the power of determination and resolve, the power of caring for others, and perhaps most importantly, the public's admiration and devotion to our health and care professionals, and to a health service that is open and accessible to all, regardless of means. Knowing that Colonel Tom's milestone birthday was on the horizon, students at St Ninian's High School worked on a special birthday card, the Manx Triskelion on a sea of red, a fitting symbol not just of our island's resilience, but also of Tom's. Despite receiving 125,000 birthday cards, I am sure this unique design will catch the Colonel's eye. Well done to all the pupils who took part, and my thanks to all our teaching and support staff working so hard in our special units across the island. On behalf of the Isle of Man Government and I think it's safe to say the people of the Isle of Man, and on behalf of the people of the Isle of Man, I would like to wish Tom a very happy 100th birthday. Of course, Colonel Tom is not alone in raising money at this time. Here on the island, people have been doing all sorts of inspiring and amazing things to raise money for good causes and for our health and care services. One such example is Ella Quayle, who is 16 and from Douglas. Ella has raised almost £3,000 for the Nobles Hospital Equipment Trust by shaving her head. A fantastic effort that will make a real difference. Thank you, Ella. Finally, for today, I want to thank the first wave of Ireland residents who were repatriated to our shores a fortnight ago and acknowledge the sacrifices they have made for the greater good of our community. I am pleased to say that yesterday they left the Comus Hotel to return to their homes. Of all the measures government has put in place in our fight against COVID-19, I think it is safe to say that repatriation has been one of the most emotive and debated. I know that for these residents who found themselves off island when we closed our borders, the past few weeks have been difficult, sometimes arduous, and this process continues for some. For those who have made it home, I know that being home on your island but not in your own homes has been frustrating and unsettling. Together, everyone on our island has worked to flatten the curve, and we are succeeding. I have made clear that our repatriation process was developed from clinical advice. Our returning residents have played a vital role in our efforts to keep the virus at bay through a 14-day period of isolation, helping keep our island community safe from ravages of a second wave. It may not mean much, but I do sincerely thank you. I have committed to keep their process of keeping this process under constant review, and we may be able to make changes in the future as our understanding of the virus develops and if the situation on our island allows. So finally, please keep safe and make the right decisions for you, your family, and for our island. Thank you very much.